Would you be the jerk for forcing your nephew to stop and immediately apologize right in front of his friends? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for embarrassing my uncle by asking him to leave my wedding? I, 34-year-old male, had my wedding yesterday with my wife Lisa, 34-year-old female. A lot of our relatives and friends attended, including my uncle who's in his mid-80s. He's never cared about me since I was born and has not checked in with me either. He was virtually non-existent throughout my life. Years ago, when we were homeless and required help, we reached out to him to lend us money and help us find another house. He's really rich and has a lot of connections, but he refused anything and never bothered to ask what had become of us either. I didn't want to invite him to my wedding, but my parents said I had to, and in the end, I did. He came along with his family, and before the wedding ceremony, he came to me and said, "Congratulations," and then stated, "Congratulations, I've also brought you an expensive present, unlike your loser of a father who couldn't give you much of anything." I was shocked at the comment. He was just smiling at me, but I lost my temper and said I don't want anything from him. I yelled at him and asked him to freak off from the wedding, etc. It resulted in a huge scene, and in the end, he had to leave, along with his family who were also yelling at me. My other relatives present there were saying that I reacted very badly, etc. I'm wondering whether I did the wrong thing now. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's out of line, and to be honest, even if they didn't want somebody there for the smallest of reasons, it's kind of their wedding and they kind of have the power to make that decision regardless. I don't think OP's the jerk. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for sarcastically telling my sister punishing her daughter for going to a movie without her stepsister is sure to help their family? My sister Anna has a daughter, Piper, 16-year-old female. Anna is married to Gavin and has a stepdaughter, Hazel, 16-year-old female. Anna and Gavin have been together for 6 years and married for 4. Both girls live with Anna and Gavin full-time due to Piper's dad being deceased and Hazel's mom being a deadbeat. Hazel sees Piper as her sister while Piper does not return the sentiment and really doesn't seem to like her very much. She's fine with her but doesn't like to hang out with her and always seems to be spending time with Hazel as a chore. This could be in part because ever since they moved in together, Anna and Gavin have decided they will do certain things together every week, and they do not get to say no to it. Hazel loves it, but Piper hates it. Both girls love The Hunger Games. Piper has read all the novels, including the newest one. Hazel is yet to read the latest novel. The girls also love the movies, and so Anna and Gavin decided they would see the new movie together. Piper said she wanted to go with her friends, but Anna told her she would go with her sister. Piper went to see it with her friends anyway, and Anna found out. She asked Piper why, and Piper told her she wanted to go with her friends. She wanted to enjoy seeing the movie and not be stuck with a burden while watching it. Anna decided to ground Piper and told her she will learn to love and appreciate her sister, or she will end up grounded a lot until she moves out. Anna was annoyed that instead of being apologetic, Piper just complied and has not shown any appreciation for Hazel since. She was telling me all this and I sarcastically told her that it's sure to help their family, punishing Piper for going to the movie without Hazel when she has been telling her for a while in different ways that she doesn't like Hazel. I also made a comment that forced proximity always makes relationships so much better. Anna told me I wasn't a parent of teens, so I didn't get it and it was rude to sarcastically talk about her parenting. Am I the jerk? I mean, maybe OP's the jerk if they just went continuously sarcastic without just being straight up saying, listen, this forced proximity thing is never going to work. There's probably next to no 16-year-old in the history of the world that has particularly enjoyed hearing, you're going to spend time with your sibling every week and you're not going to say no to it or you're punished. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not congratulating my sister on her pregnancy? I honestly don't understand why everyone thinks I'm the jerk here, so I thought I would ask internet strangers. I, 25-year-old female, went back home to visit my family before the holidays. I'm going abroad for a vacation during the actual holiday season, so this was the time that worked out the best for me. My sister Anne, 22-year-old female, is married. I'll call her husband Rick, 23-year-old male. Anne and Rick came over for dinner to see me, and Anne announced that she was pregnant with their first baby. Our parents knew, I was the only one who didn't. I told her I was very happy and excited to be an aunt, and I hugged both Anne and Rick. I noticed everyone was looking at me a bit strangely and I was like, what did I do? Anne said I didn't say congratulations. I am absolutely weirded out by this concept, so I said I was happy. What else am I supposed to say? Here's where I may be the jerk. I said, "Congratulations, you got a baby in your uterus." Anne looked at me strangely and asked me what the freak was wrong with me. I was like, "What the actual heck is wrong with you? Since when does having sex and getting knocked up get a congratulations?" Celebration, sure, but congratulations? My parents said they were disappointed in me, and Anne said I was a lost cause and wished my future wife a lot of patience, which is weird in itself. Was it such a big deal? Did I mess up? I'm feeling kind of both sides here. Obviously, they were just way out of it, expecting OP to say literally congratulations and give them the reaction that they were expecting and wanting. On the flip side, I don't think OP's necessarily right with their triviality breakdown of it. I think OP kind of got weird about it and kind of poo-pooed on it unnecessarily when it is a pretty big thing for most people. I mean, I guess at the end of the day though, if they're coming out and saying, "Hey, I'm having a baby," they are kind of expecting an excited, congratulatory reaction. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not buying my son a car like I did for the rest of his siblings? I, 49-year-old male, have 4 kids. Twin boys, both 27, one girl, 25-year-old female, and another son, 21. This post is about my youngest son, Jack. Since they were children, I promised my kids 2 things. 1, I'll fully pay for all of their college expenses, housing, tuition, food, etc. And 2, once they graduate college, I will buy them a car. I kept that promise for all my kids, except with Jack. And now I want to know if I'm a jerk for that. I paid for Jack's college expenses, but I am refusing to buy him a car. Below is some of the reasons why. I co-signed my name on the lease for Jack's room that he rents with a friend, and I send Jack his portion of the rent every month. The friend started taking advantage of my name being on the lease and stopped paying for rent too, knowing I will cover the amount because I don't want missed payments on my credit score. I asked Jack multiple times to ask his roommate to pay his portion, but the boy did not care to even respond to me, and I ended up paying for 6 months of his friend's rent too until I finally solved the problem by getting my name out of the lease. Jack has a very rude and entitled attitude. He speaks to us like we're his low-performing employees. The only time he contacts us is when he wants money and goes no contact otherwise. And we don't know what we ever did to him to treat us that way. Last year, when my wife had to be hospitalized, all of my kids flew back home to be there for their mother. Jack didn't want to, but one of his siblings bought him a ticket and talked him into flying out. Instead of being glad to be beside his very sick mother at the hospital, he spent the entire visit making everyone run errands for him. His sister has to cook a very specific type of meal for him, / we had to drive him to the gym at a very specific time he demands, etc., and acted like it was one huge inconvenience for him to have to fly out. I even talked to my other kids about whether we were bad parents that caused Jack to act this way, but all my other kids don't know why he ended up so entitled and spoilt. The rest of my kids are extremely different from Jack. We all get along with each other and care about one another. For the rest of my kids, I spent maybe $100,000 on each kid's total college expenses. With Jack's careless spending habits and unwillingness to save us any money, Jack's college years ended up costing me $180,000. So I refused to buy the promised car. Jack's upset and has gone to his grandparents complaining about me. My mother-in-law already hates me and now is calling me a jerk, saying I'm playing favorites because I bought everyone a car and not Jack. I'm conflicted because I always hear people say if you make a promise to your kids, you should always stick to it. If there was a staple kind of comment I saw all the time in Am I the Jerk posts, it was always that, especially in very similar situations before where some people said, I didn't pay for my kids X after college because of this thing. The comments were flooded with, you made that promise to them all those years and said you would fulfill it and now you're not. But I think in this situation it's pretty clear OP's already gone pretty above and beyond what a lot of parents can even do. I mean, if you really want to be petty, go and buy him like some cheapo junker that at least works. If you want to be ultimately petty and sever your relationship, go buy them a Hot Wheels. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my uncle that I would never be a stepmom after seeing how his daughter treated my aunt? When I, 20-year-old female, was 7 years old, I lost my parents and was sent to live with my aunt, Bio, and her husband, Uncle, and his daughter, Kylie. Kylie was 10 when I moved in. She lost her mom when she was 5 or 6, and my aunt had been married to my uncle for a little over a year. So it was a really difficult time for her, but I remember thinking Kylie might get what it was like a little, but she was very clear from day one we were not family. One thing that always stuck out to me was how Kylie really resented/hated my aunt. My aunt couldn't ask Kylie to do anything without being yelled at. She couldn't do anything nice for her without getting glared at. She'd accuse her of disrespecting her mom by trying to play mom. She'd accuse her of doing stuff that she had no right to do. She'd tell my aunt to know her place. My aunt always understood Kylie was grieving, and she pushed my uncle to make sure Kylie got enough time with him, but was also able to talk to him. They had her in therapy as well. My aunt told me once when I got upset on her behalf that some people, kids or adults, can find it hard to see their living parent move on and have a new relationship after they lose the other parent, and Kylie was struggling. A few months ago, I saw Kylie for the first time in 12 years, and she could not hide her still existing hatred for my aunt. The way she looked at her. I even heard her tell my uncle that my aunt was nothing to her, and all she did was attempt to steal a dead woman's entire family. It made me realize just how strong that resentment can be. I also know from my uncle's sister that Kylie is still furious my aunt ever tried to ask her to do anything, or issued any kind of consequence for her behavior when she was a kid. The experience of living with them always made me say I didn't see myself ever wanting to date or marry someone with kids. But having seen her hatred for my aunt at 30, knowing she still resents my aunt for even daring to ask her to do something in the home, it made me realize that while it can work, and some people have amazing blended families, it's not for me. A few days ago, I came back home for Christmas, staying until the 28th. My uncle was talking about my boyfriend, and then he asked about this guy at work who asked me out a couple of times and why I never gave him a chance, since I thought he was cute, etc. I told him it just wouldn't work, but he kept pushing and I told him it was because he had kids. He told me that was a strange reason when I want kids, and I said yeah, but after seeing how Kylie treated my aunt, I've decided I would never be a stepmom. His uncle was upset about it and told me I can't swear off men with kids for that reason, and said he was divorced and widower parents deserve to find happiness again. I said they do, and I would never say that they shouldn't have that, but I don't want to be that for them. He said it was rude for me to blame Kylie. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk. I think you can have any kind of preference you honestly want. If somebody having kids makes them a deal breaker for you, I don't even think that's too weird of a thing to have as a deal breaker. Honestly, I think there's plenty of people out there that feel that exact same way, even without the added history that OP has that would influence them. Our next story is, am I the jerk for calling Christmas with my ex co-parent Christmas instead of family Christmas? My ex, 30-year-old male, and I, 26-year-old female, are still in the midst of our divorce. We split after a few years of his mother making my life heck and many miscarriages. Incidentally, I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after we split. He begged me to get back together with him, and even though I still loved him, I knew that we weren't going to last. I had our son this August, and we've decided to do Christmas together this year for him. My ex had also gone no contact with his family for the role they played in our split, so I don't want him to be alone during the holidays. He'll be coming over to my mother's place on Christmas Eve and leaving on the 26th, as is normal to do in our family for Christmas, as we open presents on the eve, go to church on the day, and then have dinner together that evening. My ex also gets along really well with a lot of my male cousins and my older brothers, so it hopefully won't be awkward. Naturally, this situation has been giving me a lot of stress. My ex still wants us to work it out. We're in the midst of our divorce. I'm suffering from health problems from the birth, etc. I've been talking about this nonstop with my therapist, and she coined the term co-parent Christmas. I find the term funny, and I guess when I put it like that, I can effectively compartmentalize what is stressing me out exactly between general holiday stress or my ex being there. I've started using the term with friends and family too. My ex came over yesterday to drop his presents for my family members. My mom likes to get all the presents in her house when she's hosting by the 22nd so she can organize them properly. We have a huge family, and we discuss the arrangements a little. He comes over daily just to see the baby too because he's still exclusively breastfed. I use the term co-parent Christmas, and he got a funny look on his face but never said anything. Later on, he called me to say that he didn't like the term as it reminded him of his failure as a husband and how it meant that he didn't get to experience any sort of family Christmas this year. I felt absolutely awful and I even teared up as I apologized. I even lost a little sleep over it. And I spoke to my older brother and he said I was a jerk for not being mindful over how I spoke to my ex. I want an unbiased opinion too, so I'm opening the floor to Reddit. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk here, especially considering their reaction. I don't think the term is too outlandish or anything on its own, and I think after apologizing and correcting course, OP's especially not the jerk. I mean, many would probably say considering how he let his family treat you for years to get to this point, he's lucky that you'd even be this mindful to him regardless. Our next story is, am I the jerk for confronting my daughter's teacher? My daughter is in 6th grade. A few weeks ago, one of her teachers asked them to create a children's book. My daughter has a very good imagination. She wants to be a writer when she grows up, and she's pretty good at it. Her favorite books are the Goosebumps series. So when her teacher gave them this assignment, she decided to write a book similar to the Goosebumps. I'm not gonna say it was perfect because she's just a kid, but it was a decent book and I was proud of her when I read it. She also found a notebook with a picture of a girl on it and decided to write the story on that notebook and chose the girl to be the main character in the story. Well, a week ago, she came home crying her eyes out. Apparently, the teacher chewed her out when she saw her story. She basically told her that her story is the worst one in their class. I comforted my daughter. However, it's been a week and she hasn't been writing anything. She used to write a lot of stories, but she's lost interest. I was really angry, so I decided to meet the teacher, and I told her she owes my daughter an apology and needs to compliment her book. She said she will not be doing that, as my daughter did an awful job. According to her, my daughter should have created a cover instead of using a notebook, and called her lazy for not putting any effort in it. And also, according to her, a children's book needs pictures, and my daughter didn't do that. She told me that my daughter got a D in this assignment, and that she won't get an apology for being lazy. My daughter spent 2 weeks working on that story and its details. She is in no way lazy. I called the teacher a bench and told her she has no right to talk about my child that way or treat her like that. She called me a jerk and asked me to leave. I think it's a bit of both sides here. I think OP probably went a little further, especially calling them a bench, than they really needed to. But at the same time, I completely understand where OP's coming from when their kid worked hard on that assignment and you saw them work hard on it. I mean, if anything, this just serves to potentially stomp out any of this creative desire that their kid has been putting forth. I think that's the biggest issue here. I mean, this kid went all out on creating this book inspired by some of their favorite stories, and to have it just completely ripped apart like that is what hurts the most. I think I would be asking for a more proper rubric of this assignment if they had anything like that written down or handed out. I mean, if there was a custom cover required, if there were pictures in your book required, then I could understand they didn't exactly do the assignment. Our next story is, am I the jerk for putting my foot down and not adding my husband to the deed? Background, I, 29-year-old female, have known and been with my husband, 33-year-old male, for the past 4 years and married for 2 years. I started working when I was 21 right after my bachelor's degree. After 2 years of working, I bought myself a house. Nothing fancy. I bought the land and built the house. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-floor house. I got to know and date my husband in 2019. The construction of my house finished by then. He lived in a different country, so when he visited me, I took him to show my house. I am very proud of it. It is something I built with my own money and I own it, however small. After our wedding, I moved to the country where he was already staying. We split our bills and rent equally. We both work in IT and earn pretty good, so we're planning to buy a house. We found a place we liked and can afford. We're putting both our names to the deed because both of us are paying for it together. The problem arose when he said he wanted his name added to the house I bought by myself. I am not comfortable doing that, and I said so. He said it's unfair that I have 2 now and he would have part on 1. I said it was his bad plan for not buying a house before. I bought that house before I knew he existed and with my own money. Since he had no contribution to it, I am not obligated to make him feel good by adding him to the deeds. He then proceeded to call his family. While his sister and brother-in-law support me, his mom and dad said that it's not about money, but it's about the togetherness, and whatever it is should be for the both of us or none. I said, I'm sorry, but this is not happening. He will never be in the deed even if he pays his share, which he and his family thinks he should not because it's ours, not mine or his, because I know how much I struggle to have that house and make it happen. Now his mom and dad are saying I disrespected them by saying this. Am I the jerk? Not only do I think OP's probably not the jerk here, him turning around immediately and calling his family to try to pressure OP into adding him to the deed is probably a clear enough sign that OP really isn't the jerk. Our next story is, am I the jerk for making my nephew apologize immediately in front of his friends? I, 33-year-old male, am staying at my grandparents' house for the holidays. My grandparents passed away and the house was maintained by their children, making it into communal space for all family members to use. The rooms are usually saved for those who visit from out of town, like me. I have a cousin Frank, 34-year-old male, who also visited but stayed elsewhere. We were close growing up. Frank was married to his high school sweetheart Kim for less than 10 years with a 6-year-old daughter. Kim passed in an accident just a little over a year ago. Frank was more than devastated. What set Frank apart from most guys I know was how deeply he loved his wife. He was an exceptionally happy married man. His goodbye phrase to me, private or in public, was, "See ya, miserable single loser dater." He was making fun of how I never had a long-time girlfriend. I always took it in good fun. It was nice to see a guy so devoted, given that my parents and more than half my aunts and uncles divorced. A few days after I stayed at my grandparents', my nephew Tom, 17-year-old male, showed up with a few friends wanting to watch a movie. Tom lives with my sister nearby. I ordered the boys some pizza and joined them. A bit later, Frank dropped by wanting to catch up with me. We stayed in the same room and talked. Frank seemed to be doing much better since the last time I saw him a month after Kim's funeral. Once the movie was finished, Tom asked if they could hang out in the room for a while, and I said yes. Frank, however, excused himself, saying he needed to pick up his daughter. We hugged goodbye and Frank was about to leave when Tom said, "What? None of that miserable single loser stuff? Welcome to the club. Guess now you're a miserable single loser too." I could see the colors drain from Frank's face, and he looked like he was going to pass out. I immediately turned to Tom and told him to apologize, and now. Tom said why should he apologize, and I only raised my voice with, "Now." Tom glared at me but finally looked away and softly said sorry to Frank. Frank just left. Tom's friends mumbled about how they had to go and quickly cleaned up and left. Tom leaving with them. Later that night, Tom's father called me from across the country, reprimanding me that I should not shame Tom in front of his friends like that. He said he understood that what Tom said was insensitive, but being scolded like a child in front of his friends was not how I should handle this. I could wait and have Tom apologize later. Am I the jerk? I can't blame OP, especially if any of those friends have an inkling of an idea of what Frank went through. OP did the absolute right thing, holding them accountable, and you know what? Having him get held accountable in front of his friends might have a greater chance of actually reinforcing that through that level of shame he experienced. This next story is, am I the jerk for using money for my family's Christmas presents on a trip for myself instead? I'm a single guy with a pretty decent job. I hope to have a family someday, but for right now, I'm just dating and saving money. For the last few years, I've been using my Christmas bonus to buy my parents, siblings, and siblings cool Christmas gifts. I'm lucky enough to be earning much more than I need, and I have an excellent nest egg going for when I'm ready. My parents and my siblings aren't there. My folks were immigrants, and while they own their own home and, as far as I know, are debt-free, they do not have a huge retirement account. My older brother and sister each decided independently to start their families while they were quite young, in my opinion. So anyway, like I said, I've been blowing my bonus on all of them for the last while. I paid for my parents to visit their home country. I bought both of my siblings' families a PS5 when they were hard to get. My nephew started university this fall. I got him a new laptop last Christmas as a graduation Christmas present. I do not resent spending this money. I love my family, and I do not expect them to reciprocate. I already buy myself whatever I want. However, I noticed something this year. It was my 30th birthday, and none of them did anything for me. So I asked my girlfriend if she wanted to go to Asia for New Year's. She's a student, so I'm paying for everything. We're seeing our families for Christmas and leaving on Boxing Day. I got to my parents yesterday afternoon and put my gifts for everyone under the tree. I got everyone a $50 gift card for the movies. There are 12 of them, so that's still $600. My sister-in-law decided to sneak a peek at her gift. She thought I was snubbing her, so she told everyone that I got her a crap gift. Huge fight. I just left and went back to my hotel. Calls and texts non-stop. I was being greedy, immature, callous, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I just blocked them. I can spend the next 2 days as a tourist in my hometown and then leave. I told my girlfriend what happened with my family and she has my back. I think they're acting entitled and taking me for granted. I don't think that they're jerks, but I don't think I am either. 100% OP's not the jerk. I'm sorry, OP's gift for you is not as lavish as you expect them to get you. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not putting a stop to my stepdaughter correcting the food the host made? I, 32-year-old female, have been dating a widower with my daughter Nara, 12-year-old female, for a year. We currently moved to a new city because of my boyfriend's job promotion. I freelance and are in the middle of settling down. Nara and I get along very well. Nara plays tennis. Since the move, she's been in the school team and competed a bit. The parents of her teammates often organize some kind of get-together, and her father and I tried our best to have her attend most of them. I would say Nara got along well with all of her teammates, and I thought the parents were friendly. Last week, the team captain's parents hosted a potluck party at their place. Nara and I brought over some brownies. There really was a lot of all kinds of food. The team captain's father did most of the greeting, telling us his wife was preparing something special for us all. Once everyone was at the party, the wife came out of the kitchen with a special dish, a recipe of a specific country. Now, Nara looks white, but her late mother actually came from that very country. The host then began to serve everyone and share her recipe and ingredients and how it was not that difficult once you substitute the local ingredients, and feel free to ask her for tips. At this point, Nara spoke up, saying that the authentic recipes included such and how their particular scent and taste added to the whole experience of eating the dish. She said if so many substitutes were used, they may as well call the dish a different name. The wife host looked a little unsettled and told Nara that she and her husband traveled a lot in their youth, and she had the dish many times and knew what it was supposed to taste like, and the substituted ingredients worked just fine. Nara then said her mom was from the dish's country of origin, and she understood that some ingredients were hard to come by, but substituting so much turned the dish into something else altogether. During all this, I mostly kept silent. Nara was not being rude, just matter of fact, and as this was a matter of her heritage, I thought she could speak up. The host wife spluttered a bit before saying everyone should just go ahead and enjoy her dish, no matter the name. Everyone tried, though nobody asked for seconds. I personally thought it was a little bland, and there was a lot of leftovers. Nara's team captain later called her, thanking her for putting her annoying stepmom in her place. When my boyfriend came back from his business trip and learned of this, however, he thought I should have reprimanded Nara for being rude to the host. He also had a talk with Nara, and she seemed to be sulking a bit, though she was not grounded or anything. Am I the jerk? I mean, I get it, it's their heritage and they were upset about it, but I just feel like the whole thing was just kind of unnecessary. I mean, just to bring it up in public and rip it apart, it's just weird. I don't think, well, they were just being matter of fact is an excuse to just be kind of a jerk about the way they made their food. This next story is, am I the jerk for not thinking of dinner for my family before I left? I, 30-year-old female, had a funeral to attend with my older son, 12-year-old male, of his best friend's mom, who is also one of my best friends. My husband, 29-year-old male, didn't want to go. I left work an hour sooner, got the kids settled, and got myself ready. So as soon as he got home from work, I was walking out the door as previously planned. I only decided to attend with my oldest son and leave the other children, 5-year-old male, 6-year-old male, 8-year-old female, and 10-year-old male, home with my husband. We left at 3 p.m. and it lasted until 8:30 p.m. We were included in the food after. I didn't buy or bring food home. I assumed that if I was busy, my husband could handle it. However, I walked into kids starving and my husband yelling at me. I didn't buy him food on the way home. He didn't even ask. So, am I the jerk for not preparing dinner or buying dinner? Yeah, OP's definitely not the jerk here. If they were expecting this, they should have communicated. Maybe OP could have asked ahead of time, but you just kind of assume that as the adult watching the kids, they're going to be able to provide for said kids, right? But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.